Bonsoir mesdames et messieurs, in this episode we talk about long exposure shots. Bonsoir mesdames et messieurs and welcome to episode 67 of my photography, Lightroom and Photoshop tips. My name is Serge Ramelli, I'm a French photographer and I live in Paris, France. I'm right now traveling in the US, I'm right now in Florida and will be soon in Los Angeles. Today I want to talk to you about my best tips about doing long exposure photography. This is the final result of what we're going to be doing, as you can see here. I love doing long exposure photography, but it's a type of photography where you need to invest a little bit into gears and it's a bit more technical. So let me just give you my best tips on the subject. Okay, so let's talk about long exposure photography, but before we do that, I just want to show you something real quick. Two things. If you're on my website, photoserge.com, and you go to tutorials, I have a new package. It's called the complete package. What that is basically all I've ever done. You're talking like 20-30 hours of course with dozens and dozens of raw files. All my work since 2 years that you can get for $270 instead of $484. It's about 45% discount. And also, there is an exclusive offer. Is by the end of the month, anybody who is buying this package will, additionally to the download, get a USB version of it. Now, let's get started to our tutorial. So, if you want to get the raw files to follow along this tutorial, all you have to do is go to News, sign up, and you have to sign up on the newsletter if you've not done so. If you have already signed up to the newsletter, but you lost the link to the raw files page, a confidential page with all the raw files, well, all you have to do is re-put your name and sign up, and it will give you again that link. Please keep it for you, and it's just for people who subscribe to the newsletter, and it's totally free. So now let's talk about long exposure. Now, tip number one on long exposure, you need specific gears. Now I will show you what I use because I'm like a professional photographer, but I can show you like cheaper version if you're just getting started. So here is what I use. I'm using as a tripod because the first thing you need for long exposure is of course a tripod, because you need to not move for, you know, usually a minute or 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So tripod is the first element of long exposure. And the great thing about long exposure is that you can do it during the day if you've got nice clouds. That's something I'll mention, but you need the tripod. So I'm using a Gizmo Traveler 4-section tripod, which is about $1,000, which is very expensive, and that does not even come with the ball head. And the ball head I'm using is the Really White Stuff BH30, which is another $195. Now this is professional gear that you don't necessarily need. So I looked on B&H, and they have like tripods, you know, like for $119. That looks kind of cool to start with. If I would be you, I would go for anything which has not aluminum, but go for fiber, carbon fiber if you can find some, because carbon fiber, they have some like around $100 or $200. Look for like a carbon fiber tripod. It's much lighter than aluminum, and yeah, and it has no vibration whatsoever. It's really cool. Carbon fiber, I think they have no, they don't really have a section for yeah, they have. Look, carbon fiber. I can do on B&H. I love B&H for finding gear. Look, carbon fiber is already, it's like 200 or 239. Wow, 99. Wow, carbon fiber. So check it out on B&H. They seem to have a lot of. Look at their reviews. Yeah, and look for carbon fiber tripod if you can. Same thing. Look for heads on B&H. You know, you can buy. I would not go under $100 per experience. I've bought, when I started photography, like tripods for $25, $50. They last you 2 weeks. You know, it's really a waste of money. Okay, now the second element you need on top of the tripod is a filter. You need, and here is what I recommend, is a neutral density filter, a 1000 neutral density filter. That's a 10-stop exposure. That is really what I recommend, because with that you can really shoot during the day and get amazing effects. So again, two versions. The professional version for $149. BW is a good brand for filters, And if you're, you know, if you don't want to spend too much money, well, if you type on eBay ND1000, you will see there's a lot of ND2 to ND1000 filters. They only cost $29, and I bought one and tested one, and they're really good. So you can get a good filter for $29. The last gear you will need is a remote. Now, I tried many remotes. I have like time-lapse remotes. I have different remotes, and there's one that I found recently that I love, and it's this one. It's a $20 remote. It's the Canon official wireless remote control. And so when you take a long exposure shot, the way you work at it is that you go into the bulb mode, the B mode. You do your focusing, then you put your filter on, okay? And now with that remote, you can just press once. And what that's going to do is going to start taking the photo. And when you press a second time, it's going to stop taking the photo. Now, one little trick I can give you, and that's my that's another tip I can give you, which is cool, is that when you want to focus, normally you have to take the filter out, because the filter is so dark that once you put it on, you cannot focus anymore. Well, that's not exactly true, because unless it's very dark, what you can do is just turn on the live view mode. You're in B mode, okay? You turn on the live view mode, and what that's going to do in live view is boost the ISO, and with the live view, you will still be able to see and focus. Anyway, once you're focused and you frame your shot, you go back to the regular B mode without the live view. Make sure your ISO is at 100, and then you can use that remote. You press and you stop when you finish the photo. And I will give you the time value, some ideas of time value you need to have a bit later on. But anyways, that remote is really the best. I'm only using that remote now, except when I'm doing time lapse. But this one, I take most of my photos with it. I love that remote. One of the best gear I bought recently. Okay, now let's get started in Lightroom. So I want to show you something. This is a photo that we're going to be retouching. This is my first attempt. So this is not a long exposure. I want to show you the difference between regular exposure and long exposure. I was holding by hand at 160th of a second at f7.1, ISO 100 with my 2470, right? Just a regular shot. Okay, it's a kind of an okay shot. The second photo is an on-handheld photo, again, at 1/640th of a second at 7.1. Basically the same framing, but just a bit lower exposure. I just wanted to see how it looked. Okay, then I put on the ND1000 filter on, the famous 1000 filter on, and check this out. So what I did is all I went is, you go to B mode, you frame your thing, the scene has been framed. You take off the autofocus. You are in B mode, okay? ISO 100, white balance, whatever you want. Just make sure you shoot RAW. And you press the remote one time, okay? The first time I tried, I did 16 seconds at f16. Now, I'm usually around f16 when I do long exposure. Why? Because it helps, f16 is a very, very small hole for the aperture, and so there's very little light, so it helps to get longer exposure. We want long exposure. So at f16, I tried 16 seconds, just like this, and it was a bit too dark. Now, another tip that's very important is when you do long exposure, make sure you have nice clouds or nice water, or even better, both in your photo, and that you have a foreground element that is not moving. So it creates a contrast between moving elements and non-moving elements, like I'm having here. Now this first photo is too dark, so I took a second one. This time at f16, but 38 seconds. See how it's brighter? And so, I have the fixed, how the water becomes all kind of silky, and the clouds start tearing apart, and the filter also gives a magenta cast to the photo, which I find is well fitted for sunsets. Okay, the last photo, and that's the one we're going to retouch. I shot at it was 78 seconds, which is 1 minute and 18 seconds at f16. Now it's a bit brighter, but the water is really silky, and the clouds are even more teared apart, which I really liked. So as I said, if you need to reposition a bit your, once you frame the shot, try using the live view mode. Sometimes it's just going to boost the ISO and give you a bit of a preview where you can reframe your shot, so you don't have to take the filter out, frame, and put the filter back on. If you try it, you will see what I mean. Now, one thing you can also do is try different exposure, like I'm doing, to do like, you know, digital blending. You know, one photo for the sky, like this photo could be good for the sky, for example, and this photo could be just good for the water. Okay, that's one idea. And voila. So then this is the raw file, really like straight out of the camera, no retouching whatsoever. So let's just do a little bit of retouching. Now, what I would do to it is pretty simple. Not that much. I would just open up the shadows. On the highlights, I wouldn't do that so much. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, okay, actually I would do it. So plus 100, minus 100. Yeah, I think the first time I tried it, I was around minus 56, but minus 100 is cool. So I opened up the shadows, I brought down the highlights, which is what I do all the time. And then the whites. Now the whites, I press the Alt key or Option key and I move to the right. Okay, and you know, you're not going to learn much, but I just want to make sure nothing is burned. And the blacks, I'm pressing the Option key and going left until I see a bit more of the blacks. Okay, and just one more tip on long exposure photography. Usually I go to cloudy when it's sunset. So let me show you daylight. Cloudy, no, I was on cloudy, I'm sorry, I go to shade. Shade is really what I like, make it like a bit more orange. Okay, and the last thing I would do on this photo to make it really pop is use a brush, make sure the exposure is on. Yeah, and I think I would, I'm gonna make the water even more shiny. I'm gonna make the water shine, my friends. Make that shine water. You know why? Because I feel like it. No, the reason why is because I think it just puts more light and more attention to the water that's silky, and I think that's really the, you know, I mean, look how ugly the water is when it's not silky. You know, it's like, and even that was pretty cool. That was like pretty cool because it was the end of the day, and it's the, you know, the water was not so wavy. But when it's more wavy, it looks like an ugly texture. It's not really nice. It is so much nicer when it's with silk. At least that is my viewpoint. Anyways, yeah, I would just brush here to make it a bit more interesting here. And maybe bring down, you know, with an ND filter, bring down the exposure of the sky. Sometimes what I try to do is try to add some blue in the sky. Or I even do, okay, I'm going to leave it on this way. This filter is has only one option. The exposure is going down, okay? And then I click on new. I'm going to make a new filter. Okay, a new filter for the sky. But this time, I'm not going to touch the exposure, so I double click on it. I'm just going to touch the temperature and add just a little bit of blue. Just to add a bit of, you know, of contrast. Otherwise, the whole photo is yellow or orange, which can be cool. You know, it just depends. This is the before. This is the after, you know. It's kind of one way of doing it. Yeah, it can be interesting. So voila, not much retouching because everything was really done in camera. I show you the before and after. I mean, yeah, there is a difference, but it's not a huge difference compared to usually because the filter did everything. So if you've never tried long exposure photography, you've got to try. It's really something that I do often in the afternoon using that ND 1000 filter, you know, because you can really, whenever you've got clouds and water, try this look. It makes really interesting photo. Thank you very much, guys, and let's go back to my room. Okay, guys, I hope this inspired you to do long exposure photography. It's really a pleasure for me because it's really the type of photography that I do in the afternoon. Because with this ND 1000 filter, you can shoot during the afternoon if you've got night clouds and a bit of water and make very, very interesting photos. So I usually shoot mostly in the morning and in evenings, and this way I can be busy all day shootings if the weather is for it. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week.